Today we're going to talk about what no one wants to talk about: suicidal thoughts, self-harm, and how to help your teenager through a mental health crisis. Welcome back to This Is Now Parenting Teens Today. I'm Tiffany Dogie, President and CEO of Children's Harbor, and joining me today is a mom who has lived through this, and not one, but two mental health experts. Thank you for joining us today. Why don't we start with telling our listeners a little bit about something about yourself and why this conversation matters to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me today. So my name is Dr. Julie Radlauer, and I am a licensed mental health counselor and a doctor of public health. I've been working in the children's mental health space and mental health space for 25 plus years. And this topic is really important to me because suicide is the second leading cause of death in young people from 15 to 24 years of age. And so as a population level researcher, I want to figure out how do we help families navigate this challenge, because it's obviously something that's very prevalent and something that people need support around.
Awesome. Thank you for being here. Yeah. Paul?
Thanks, Tiffany. My name is Paul Jaquith. I am the CEO of Mental Health America and Florida Initiative for Suicide Prevention. I've been associated with that organization for over 15 years, but I have over 40 years of experience as a licensed clinical social worker, certified addictions professional. My interest really in the suicide area has to do with the work that we do, which is in prevention, also in getting the word out and educating people in the community about suicide, suicidal thoughts. It doesn't have to be a taboo subject, which I think we'll get into a little bit today as we go further into this.
I hope.
I think, quite honestly, more people die as a result of concerns about the taboo subject matter and not wanting to talk about it. Silence kills more people than talking. That's my interest. I want to open it up. I want people to be reasonably comfortable with talking about it. And I do a lot of work around the country and doing workshops and educational opportunities. I also serve on something called the Broward Suicide Prevention Coalition. I'm an active member of the, and actually was the chair of the Lethal Means Subcommittee. So I have a fair amount of experience and expertise in this area, and I look forward to getting the word out as much as possible.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Malia?
Hi, I'm Malia Arnett Archie, and today I'm here just as a mom who has lived through a lot of what we're going to talk about today, and quite frankly, who's still trying to figure it out.
Totally get it. And I am Tiffany Dogie, and today I'm just here as me. And this is something that I have struggled with my entire life, and there have been seasons where we didn't talk about it at all, long seasons where we didn't acknowledge that it was part of my lived experience, to use that term before. But thank you. I know how hard it is to have to talk about this at a personal level, but I agree with you. More people die because of the taboo and not being willing to talk about it. So let's talk about it. Let's get uncomfortable today. So thank you for being willing to get uncomfortable with me. And first question, you said to me privately once, you said this was something that you never thought would ever happen to your family. And that really resonated with me. This was months ago. I'm not even sure if you remember saying that, but you were like, we're a normal family. And I remember having that conversation with you. Would you be willing to share a little bit more with our listeners about that?
Absolutely. I think, just at the most basic level, we all have a plan for how family is going to go and how it's going to turn out. And you have the hopes and the dreams and aspirations for all your babies. And from the time that you get married, even before you maybe get pregnant for the first time, you have it all mapped out. And what I found is that life isn't, that neat and, perfect. And it was shocking for me to recognize that some of the things that I had on the list and some of the things I had imagined family would be were during these times, they were being upset, right? The apple cart was completely turned over. And it just really caught me off guard. And I think I was struggling to figure out what normal would be for us, given these new circumstances.
Okay, so let's start with some clarity. When we say suicidal ideation, Paul or Julie, Dr. Julie, what does that actually mean? When we're talking to normal people who don't have any kind of clinical background, what is suicidal ideation?
It really is just as it sounds, is if you have an idea about suicide. And just to clarify terminology, really important to understand, to use the term death by suicide or died by suicide, we do not say committed because it's not really a crime. It's not an act of volition, although many people would see it that way. But imagine when someone gets to that place where there's loss of hope, no hope. That doesn't mean that they make a decision, well, this is what I'm going to do. That's not how it works. So when we talk about ideation, if someone has plans, if someone has thoughts about how I'm going to get out of this miserable place that I'm in, and I've considered these things, one thing I hope that your listeners get from, if nothing else out of this podcast, is that you will not create the idea in someone's head if you say to them, have you thought about hurting yourself? Do you have plans to hurt yourself? You have not introduced that idea to them. I guarantee it. What you do is now you lift that veil of taboo, of we don't talk about that in our family because we're a normal family, whatever that is. But that's what we think, right? We have a certain, as you said, we have a certain vision of how our lives are going to go. So you can imagine if someone's life is not going in that path, now they're going into a place where these other thoughts are coming in. To ask someone, are you thinking about or have you had thoughts about hurting yourself? You've now allowed them to tell you. That's what you want to know.
Thank you for saying that, because I've actually heard that a lot. And we covered this in another episode. I'm not sure if you remember, but I hear this a lot from parents and from professionals and from caregivers in our field that, oh, don't talk. You're going to plant the idea in their head if you ask them that. And then it's going to be your fault that they killed themselves. Now, I think, from my perspective, that's ridiculous.
It is.
That's absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely.
But that's because
I'm
it's normalized for me. I think,
as I can say, as a parent, me personally, looking back now, Monday morning quarterbacking, I knew that things were awry. I was afraid, to your point, to ask the very specific question.
Very
One,
common.
I didn't have the language, but I knew I should have been asking something. But I thought that if I brought up the topic, that I would be planting a seed and maybe, encouraging an idea. And I remember the first time, we had sort of a formal conversation with a professional, and the topics came up. The questions came out, and the answers just, it wasn't a thought. They were right there. And I just thought, wow, I mean, that clarity of what the situation is right there at the top of mind, and I live with this person and was blind to it willingly to some extent. So that is definitely one of the things. I don't live in a place of regret, but doing things differently moving forward, just being empowered to ask the question and feeling really an obligation to make sure that I know, what the thoughts are.
And I think, again, I think if we can get people to understand, parents particularly, it's okay to ask the question. I'm sure the next thought is, okay, but what if they say, yeah, now what do I do?
now what do you do?
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
yeah, I think about that. And I had that experience, actually. I've had that quite a few times where I remember the first time I actually said to somebody, oh, I think it's weird if you don't think about killing yourself. I really, to me, it's a normal thought pattern. And I remember that person's face. It was just pure, mortified, I want to use the word fear. It was like,
Fear. That's what it is.
But you're not planting the idea. And you can live in a home. Well, I guess my own mother went through this. with the why didn't I know? Why didn't I see the signs? I'm a bad mother. How come I didn't know? And I mean, I see you every day. We have dinner every day, and I had
what
no
did I
idea.
do wrong?
I had no idea.
What
you
did
were
how did I
struggling.
cause this?
100%.
Right.
100%.
What did I do
And
wrong?
nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
Nothing could be further from the truth.
I have a dear friend whose daughter died by suicide, and she does some public speaking about it. A lot of public speaking.
That is so
about it.
hard.
And people come up to her after every time she speaks and says, "Well, what would you have done different as a parent?" And she's like, "That is the most offensive question," because she had a great relationship with her daughter. Her daughter was struggling. She knew her daughter was struggling. They were getting help, and her daughter died by suicide. Like those things can happen at the same time. And I understand it's easy to say because you feel like, how could I have not known that this is happening? She struggles with that every day. And the warning signs for young people are sadly some of the typical behaviors of young people. I mean, we're looking,
Talk about that.
we're
What are
looking
the
at,
signs?
Yeah, we're looking at, okay, so are they using drugs and alcohol more than they were before? Are they isolating? I don't know a teenager that is not behind a closed door.
Exactly.
Are they changing in their appearance or their appetite? Do you recognize changes within the way that they're acting? Are they not doing the things that they used to love to do? Again, given our current circumstances, our children used to love to do things outside. Now they're on their phones and they're constantly isolated and on their phones. So things have changed. So it could be when you see somebody every day, you can miss some of those important, warning signs. There are other signs, like if somebody's self-harming, something like that, where it's like, okay, this person, my child needs to go see a professional if they're not already seeing a professional. But as a parent, you can miss a lot of those warning signs because it's typical teenage behavior.
Yeah, it's just a mood swing.
It's a mood swing, right? And so
She broke up with her boyfriend. She'll get over it. Give her a couple of weeks.
And you almost search for those things because you don't want it to be the other, right? And so it's when it presents like typical teenage behavior, it's almost a relief. Like, oh, well, yeah, okay. Now I get it. She broke up with her boyfriend, so understandable. She's going to be depressed. She'll get over it. And you give yourself that out as the parent to not ask the direct question because you want to define it as typical behavior.
Right.
Because it makes, let me speak for myself, it made me feel a little bit better that it wasn't something more serious until it escalated into something more serious.
Right.
And I had bypassed all the opportunities, I think, to you maybe ask the questions that need to be asked earlier to maybe prevent some of the things that happen later.
I think you can also ask all the questions and still.
yeah.
I'm looking to you to.
Yeah.
I knew that's
And
what
you know
were
what?
saying.
I caution when we use the word prevention, and I've talked to survivors. Survivors are people who are left behind in the aftermath of the death by suicide, by the way. Not people who have attempted. Survivors of those left behind. And we know for every person that dies by suicide, there can be up to 135 people impacted by that death. Friends, family, colleagues, co-workers.
classmates.
Anything. So in that range of people, what starts to happen, and you started mentioning, maybe if I ask the questions, but this parent I've talked to said to me, I went to a training once, and the trainer said, this is the most preventable cause of death. And she said, do you know what that does to me as a parent who lost a child? It means I could have done something. And she said, you need to be careful about language. And that's part of what we're talking about today. The use of language is critical. We work with survivors all the time. Very careful about how we use our language because survivors are already at a heightened sense of, I want to keep this a secret. I don't want anyone to know. Yet you're hurting. You're in pain. You want to talk to someone about it. You want to share what your experience is, what that loss is like, the dynamics of it, and without getting into too much graphic detail, but we have a loss team here. It's the only loss team in the
phenomenal.
state of Florida that goes to the scene of a death by suicide. We start working with those family members at the kitchen table. as they're cleaning the scene, we're working to do whatever needs to happen. We are there. So there are opportunities to begin to just reach out to people. And one of the things we find better is to say to people, ourselves, less is more. Don't say, it's okay. There are certain things that people say, they're well-intentioned, they're well-meaning, but they don't help. She's in a better place. He was,
Right.
those are ridiculous. It doesn't ease the pain. It only adds the burden. And that's what we're trying to do is help. And the other thing I might talk about, survivors are a very high risk group of death by suicide themselves. So the sooner we can get in and start to help people, and again, people are well-intentioned, they're well-meaning, there may be religious institutions that have certain issues with it. How do you, let's say it's a teenager, how do you call the school? There are very practical things that, I don't even know where to start with this.
I don't think people know I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Right.
And this is such a huge part of my identity. Even we lost a child, in full disclosure. We lost one of the kids that we worked with for many years in January. And our team, and we are professionals, our team was rocked by this child's death. And I didn't know what to say. I just sat in front of them completely and totally dumbfounded with no words. And this is part of my identity. So I don't know even how to give people the language.
The words are, there are no words.
Exactly.
There are no
It's
words.
just to sit quietly and say, I'm here for you.
Listen.
I'm just a sponge. Tell me what this is like. And if you don't want to say anything, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Just sometimes the presence of another human being to hold your hand is enough to just get you through that next 5 minutes. I've had survivors say to me, when it first happened, I felt like my feet were stuck in pails of cement. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know what. How do you call other family members? I mean, there are so many things that you're not prepared for that all of a sudden you're faced with. So, and I don't want to get too much into that part of it, but where does it lead us to? Like, how do we get here? And I think
Yes.
that's part of what we want to talk about
What
today.
signs do we covered a little bit the signs that we dismiss, because it's like typical teenage behavior, like they're moody, they're not talking, they're staying in the room all the time. We dismiss this behavior. But when do we know as parents that there's something going on here? We need to reach out for help.
I just want to add one thing about that, is especially because our young people are spending so much time on their phones.
Yeah.
Seeing what they're watching on their phones is a great indicator, because if you see young people that are watching suicide videos or watching videos about death or watching and they are there.
All of their memes are dark, and they're sharing
Right.
things on their social media
Yep.
that's really dark.
Right. So looking at, because the behavior that we see in young people these days happens virtually in many instances. So somebody who used to be spending a lot of time on their phone and now they're just not even touching their phone because they've withdrawn. That's something to be paying attention to. Or what I do with my children a lot is sit down next to them. What are you watching? Show me what you're into these days. I want to see. I want to learn. I want to laugh with you, whatever it is. And when you see something that looks a little bit like, okay, time to pay attention. Let's have a conversation about this. And that's when we're going to, you express some concern about what's happening. You close your mouth and you listen. You check in with them on a regular basis, keep close contact to make sure that everything's okay. You're compassionate when they have a rough day, instead of, oh, don't worry about it. It was just,
It's a bad day, not a
it's a
bad
bad
life.
day. Exactly, right? And then always think about, is this person being safe? So prioritizing safety whenever possible. So they're going out and, I don't know who's driving tonight. Okay, let's have a conversation about that. Who's going to be driving? How are you going to be getting home? Are you guys going to be drinking? Whatever it is. Even for young kids, having those open conversations. Don't think because you're not talking about it, it's not happening.
Right.
So having as much open conversation as you can and listening, which was your point.
And the other thing is, for kids, if you know their friends, ask them, how's Jimmy seemed to you lately? They'll probably tell you. They may not, but doesn't hurt to ask.
It's hard to ask.
And oftentimes other kids know something is, and they may not know what it is, but they just know something's not right. You know, he used to like coming out with us. Now he's not anymore. Or we used to go, you know, to the, you know, golfing range or something, and he's just not interested in. You know, you talked about what we call anhedonia, which is the loss of interest in things that used to be pleasurable. Those are typically when you're down the line pretty far. Again, I've heard from parents who have talked about, I had a great relationship with my child, very close, very tender, very sharing,
affectionate.
but something happened, and I didn't see it, and then you go into that place of you know, I should have. Shouldas are not getting you anywhere. They're not getting you anywhere, particularly as a survivor. It's not productive. It puts you in a place of I could have when I didn't, and that's not the case. No one would want that outcome. There's not a person on this earth that would want that outcome.
Right.
And I always talk about survivors because we do survivor support groups for parents, for siblings, for, you know, all kinds of different situations. And I always say that this survivor network, we use a lot of volunteers, of survivors. They will tell you that I don't want anyone to have to go through what I'm going through.
Yes.
I'm happy to have that support, but I wish it didn't have to be.
Yeah.
Don't we all want that?
Yes.
But the fact is, we live in the real world, and things happen, and people are left with that. So I think there are ways to kind of, if you have a question, you know, like what's the saying? If you see something, say something, right?
Yeah.
And if something seems off, and you know, parents know their kids, you know, something's just not adding up, and I'm not comfortable with this. There are people that you can contact in the community, all over. They're not just in one community; they're all over. A professional organization, or maybe you know someone who knows someone, or your physician or your pediatrician. Hey, do you know of anybody that specializes in behavioral health? And that's the term we use, behavioral health. And can we get Johnny to see someone, just to see?
So I'm going to push back a little bit on that one, because they're everywhere. These professional services are everywhere, and yet they're nowhere for normal people.
Yes.
For
Right.
normal people who don't have a clinical background, they don't know. They don't know what to do other than wait for it to come to a head and call 911 and say,
Right.
and scream into the phone.
And even after it comes to a head and you're looking, I think, for continued support outside of that acute
Yeah,
circumstance, it's difficult.
absolutely.
It's really difficult to find a place that, you know, will, you know, that you can lean on for that continued care and support. And I mean, that was probably the thing that was most shocking for me through the entire experience, is that one, the acute setting felt like prison. And I felt like a horrible person for, you know, involving that
Scenario.
level of
scenario.
intervention.
Right. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is not what like I it was horrible. And then, you know, afterwards, you know, I felt I was at a loss to really find resources.
So I will be the first, because I represent that.
Sorry,
that
no
system.
offense to you.
No. And I will agree, it is a challenge, especially if you're from outside the system. You know, you work as an accountant. You don't know what this world is.
Right,
I
how to
mean, I know
navigate
it
it.
because I work in it. And even then, there are times
People
when
don't even know that they can call 211.
Yeah,
The
right.
large majority of people
or
do not
988.
know. Or 988.
988 is a hotline that's national. Anyone call it anytime to get resources. It does not have to be a crisis. It doesn't have to be an emergency. Hey, I just need to get some help with some resources in my community. I don't know what they are. Rural communities are more of a challenge. And we've heard from people who have gone through the experience. Kid gets hospitalized. It's not often a very pleasant experience.
It's horrible.
And in fact, we know when a lot of times when kids are discharged from a hospital, they know what to say. I'm not suicidal. I'm not having those feelings anymore. Just to get out. But it's really important that the aftercare plan be put into place. So sometimes we can only be our best advocates for our children when we say, I'm not leaving here without a discharge plan. And that would be the language to use. I need a discharge plan. Where are we going from here? What do we do from here? Hold people accountable for what their work is. If you don't say anything and they just say, well, she's fine, I'm not feeling that. I think we need something more. It's okay to disagree with the discharge plan.
Yes.
You have every right to disagree with it and say, I am not comfortable with this plan.
Right.
So what resources did you wish had, what resources, I'm not even saying that right, what resources did you wish were available to you that you didn't even know existed?
Yeah, so again, when sort of the circumstance was emergent, it was an emergency, all you know to do is dial 911. Right. And to try to get help, and then you realize very quickly that they don't, they have one answer.
Right.
And so usually you go down that path. We certainly did. And, again, just seeing and being involved in, the public facilities that we have here in Broward County specifically, I was alarmed for all children, mine and all the other children that I'm like, this is what's happening. It felt like a zoo/prison. And, certainly that was the feedback, is that's what it felt like as well. And then afterwards, we did have an aftercare plan, which involved the outpatient side of the facility, and it was still like a meal. It was not personal, a meal, a factory meal. It was not personal. It was, very sterile. It wasn't
Cattle.
Yes. It was just another name and number in a long list. And trust me, I get it that the system's probably overwhelmed and that, but I was asking for, well, can you direct me to, for private resources? At one point I was on a call with a program, I think in Utah, like a camp that specialized in this. And I was like, if it takes me, going to Utah, then we're going to Utah, but it shouldn't. Right?
Utah's beautiful.
I know, but
just to lighten the mood a little bit. It's beautiful.
No,
it shouldn't take that.
And I'm going to say I'm sorry you had that experience, and your experience is very typical. And not just here in Broward County. Our behavioral health system is really struggling these days. And I always tell people, the first line of defense is looking at your insurance and communicating with your private insurance. Because when people call me and ask me for a referral, if they have private insurance, you need to go through your insurance and get a list of providers and try to find somebody that speaks to you and try to get an appointment. And all of that is a lot of work when you're going through a crisis. Paul mentioned 988 and 988 and goes to 211 in our community, right? So 988 is a great resource because they will connect you with 211. For your young people, you can have them contact and communicate through the crisis text line, which is very easy access. It's literally just texting. And so maybe we can put all that in the show notes, 988 and crisis text line. And those are resources while we're getting to the resources that people really need. But again, that's why we're doing this, is because it's so difficult to navigate through this system unless we're having this conversation.
And you hit on something, and it's that in-between part, right?
Yes.
Where the situation isn't acute anymore, but you haven't, gotten all your ducks in a row with your insurance and found a provider. And
Who's going to do that? Who, as a parent of a teenager, is going to, just in case we go through hell, let's get our ducks in a row and make sure we understand what to do.
Even afterwards, the time that it takes after,
it's ridiculous.
Maybe the bad thing happens.
Hard.
And there's that period where nothing is normal. Everything is, it's like you're living underwater. You're trying to figure out how to breathe, as well as, figure out a long-term care plan. For the
you
child.
shouldn't have to figure it out.
And that's why these resources, it's good to know that these sort of bridge resources exist to help you through that.
Yeah.
It's actually one of the most critical times.
Yeah.
If someone's been hospitalized, and that transition from the hospitalization to picking up somewhere else is really one of the most vulnerable times for that person and that family. One other resource that some communities, not all have, are mobile crisis teams that will mobilize a team of experts that will go to you and do the assessment. Not every community has that. I would always suggest that, just like you have a first aid kit in your home, you should also have a first aid kit for behavioral health. It sounds crazy, but it's one of those things, if you don't know, you don't know. But there are resources. There are resources in most communities, and you can Google stuff. You don't have to do a whole extensive research, but I would urge your listeners, anybody that, there's a reason why people are tuning into this, right? So, because they want the answers. And so if you're looking for the answers, that means you need to start looking for them now. Don't wait for the crisis.
That's a good point.
And I think also
That's a really good point.
tapping into our schools. I think, therein lies the whole issue of stigma is, do I really want to go to the school to have a conversation about what's happening in my home? But trust me, what you're seeing at home, the schools are also seeing it or aware of it. And so the schools are dealing with young people that are struggling all the time. So
Your child could be going to the guidance counselor
Right.
at school, and the school's not telling you because of privacy.
because they don't have to, right?
Right, they don't have to.
So they know
I
resources.
want to back up just a
Okay.
bit because I do want to go back to parents, how parents can cope through this. But self-harm. If you find your child hurting themselves, cutting themselves, I'll just use self-harm as an all-encompassing. Is that the same thing as wanting to kill yourself? Could we just touch a little bit on that? Because I know that there's a lot of questions about that.
It is not. However, there are many different factors. Let's normalize it in a sense that if someone has cancer, not all cancers are the same.
Right.
There's skin cancer, there's prostate cancer, there's this, there's all kinds of different types. It's the same with behavior. It doesn't always lead to. It's not always one road to lead to one conclusion. It just is a signal that something is afoot, right? Something is not okay right now.
Something hurts.
Yes. Yeah. Or someone is so out of touch with that feeling of pain, the only way they could feel it is by cutting themselves and harming themselves. Without getting into too much of the clinical complications of it, it may be an indicator that something is there, but someone could accidentally really hurt themselves just because they cut too deep or they cut the wrong place or whatever. The fact is, if someone is doing that, they need intervention.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's what I was hoping you would say.
Yeah.
It's not something to ignore,
No.
but it's not a Baker Act situation. It's not an involuntary hospitalization, as Baker Act is definitely something that's regional. But it's not, you don't pick up the phone because you discover this and go to level 10.
Right. Yeah, like, I always use this corollary. It's like killing a bug with a sledgehammer. You don't need to do it. You don't have to
That's
pick
all
out
we
your
know to
big
do.
guns.
I can tell you as
Right.
a parent, like literally,
You just
that's
want it
all,
to go away.
That's all. That's all you know.
Yeah.
And it's 911.
Yeah.
And so that's why this conversation I think is so important, because it helps to understand not only what to look for, but then what to do about it when you see it, and how to maybe escalate as appropriately. But for me, it was I'm scared.
Yeah.
I'm sad. I need immediate help. I need someone to come in and fix it. And so it's 911.
Or I want people to know 988. 988 is
Nationally.
the number, because you can call it from Utah. You can call it from New York. It will connect
988.
you to someone.
Right.
So 911, of course, is the crisis, right? We're in this crisis right now. 988 hopefully would be before you get there, but it's also a crisis line.
So you can
set up
call
for-
it if you'd like to hurt yourself, or if you're thinking
Yes.
about hurting yourself.
or if you have someone who's
you
hurting
just
themselves.
need advice or
Yes.
direction
Yes.
on what to do
Yes.
because you're worried about someone.
Correct.
I think that's for me, that's the difference. So 911 is this person is on a ledge,
Right.
and we need to intervene
Now.
right now with emergency personnel.
Right.
And 988 is we have a mental health crisis. And it's a conversation, it's mobile crisis being dispatched, it's access to local community mental health, right? Or they're going to be going out to deal with a crisis that's not somebody on the ledge. I do a lot of workshops with professionals, and I talk to them about when you call 911. The people that come out, even if they've been trained to work with people in the mental health field, they have two tools in their toolbox. It's hospitalizing somebody involuntarily or arresting them. Those are the choices, because those are the tools that those public servants have access to. And do you want that for your person? And if you do, because the person's a danger to themselves and others, and then fine. If you just don't know what to do, that's not the right resource. When we've got other resources like 988 or 211 or crisis text line, right? Again, imminent danger, we're going to call somebody who can help them.
I think it's really important to differentiate that, because teenagers who are engaging in self-harm, when we have a child, because obviously we have 29 kids at any given time, and all of the kids that are on our campus have been egregiously traumatized, physical, sexual abuse, neglect, human trafficking. They have been through a lot of life. And so there's self-harm. And when we're having conversations with them, the number one thing that I hear, typically girls, is, I don't want to die. I just don't want to feel this way anymore.
Yeah.
I just want the pain to go away.
Right.
It's the number one feedback point. Well, why are you hurting yourself, honey?
Right.
I just don't want, it helps me feel better.
It's the only thing they have control over.
Right.
And so for people who have been traumatized, trauma is a huge impact on all of this. And trauma can be very subtle. It can be based from years ago in an experience that even that person is not aware of. And it can be activated out of nowhere. And oftentimes people don't, why am I feeling like this? I don't understand it. So, sometimes that can be part of that. So when people are, especially girls, as you said, are harming themselves, that's the control thing. At least I can control the amount
Where
of
I
pain I
hurt.
feel and where it hurts. And, but it's, obviously it's way more deep than that, but on a very surface level, that's kind of what's going on. But they're almost two separate things, if you will.
But yet they're lumped together.
Yes.
Yes.
And so you walk into the bedroom and you see your daughter harming herself, and you pick up the phone and you call 911. Help me. She's trying to kill herself, but she's not. And so I do think that
important.
differentiation is important.
Yeah.
I wanted to just highlight this one area, and that is the time between minority and majority, 17 and 18, right? Because this was something that was eye-opening for me in having sort of issues on both sides of being an adult and not, right? And the difference in how you receive treatment and get help and what you do. Because, obviously when you have more control over a teenager or minor versus when it's an adult in your home who's still not an adult, like in real life, not paying the bills and all of that.
They're a
Not paying their own bills.
But they're an adult. I mean, it would be helpful for me if we could talk a little bit about, the different approaches between, when you have minor children versus adult children who are still in the home.
Yeah. And you know what? That's a huge issue. And you're right. Just because your birthday happens on December 5th and now all of a sudden you're 18 years old does not mean you've become a different person.
Right.
I don't know you, but that didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
However, the system sees you as a different person,
Right.
and therein lies the problem.
Right.
So in the adult services world, it's a different system. It's a different series of organizations, if you will. And you're right. And because you have kids who are going through that transition.
How much
part of their
information they'll
lives.
give you as a parent,
Right.
because now you're not entitled to it.
Consent changes.
Yes.
All kinds of things change. However, the consistency is the parent. The parent is the one who's the consistent in the life of that person. And and we're talking about teenagers, obviously, going into adulthood. And it's a transition time because it represents something to kids as they go from 17 to 18, 18 to 21. It represents something. And in their minds, it says something to them. That's open to interpretation, but it definitely changes how they see the world. And for sure how the world sees them.
And even how treatment, right? So
Yes.
when they go into treatment, making sure, are they taking their medicine? Like,
Yeah.
how much can you
I think
control what they do?
I think one of the things that parents can do, because as you guys were mentioning, it's a huge issue. And I forgot, I'll have to look it up and we can put it in the show notes too. But there are some forms that when your child turns 18, you sit down and have them complete. And one of them is a HIPAA form, and one of them is a healthcare surrogate form,
Right.
and one of them is what are the other ones? You know,
That
the
is
guardian
really
form.
good.
And so when you do that in advance, God forbid something happens. When my kids were getting
Sign
ready to go to
here.
college, I was like, "You're 18 now. We're going to sit down." We had a signing party.
So smart.
And
That is really good.
We filled out all of the forms. We had to go
That
get them
sounds like a great
notarized.
free download. That's what I'm going to do.
I'll
You're
send
going to
you the
send me
info.
the forms, and I'm going to put it in the episode notes. We're going to have a signing party download, and that when your kid goes to college, they should sign.
No, before. They need to do it before they turn 18 because if you
Okay,
have
or
a
before.
child that is just,
They have to be 18
Great
to
idea.
sign.
I'm going to
do
exercise my
that.
right
I'm
to
telling
be 18.
you this. Yeah, I know, right?
Let's definitely do that.
When we sat down and we explained it, we were like, okay, this is why you need this one. God forbid somebody, you know, like one of them was about making decisions if somebody's, you know, at a time of death. And I was like,
What
I'm
if
out.
they get into a car
I
accident?
was like, I'm out. I can't make that decision. It's going to be dad, or it's going to be, you know, older brother. Deciding within our family who are the people that are going to support each other. We filled them out. The kids filled them out. We all did it.
that was
together.
brilliant.
You know, I think
It was not my idea. Somebody
but
sent
if-
it to me, and I was
but I
like,
think-
really? Fill out these forms?
for your audience,
Yeah, thank you.
again, there's a reason why they're tuning into this. Now's the time
Now's
to
the time.
have the conversation.
Yeah.
Now's the time to gather your data, your information. You don't want to be scrambling.
Right.
Oh, geez, what am I going to do now? 911, okay, because that's an automatic, right?
Right.
But that's been drilled into us
That's right.
for many, many years. 911, 911. That's what we understand. And that prepares you for those emergencies. Now's the time to be prepared for the emergency. Hopefully you never have to use it, but better to have it than to wonder, I wish I had
I
this.
didn't get the forms.
Why didn't I have this
Right.
in advance?
Excellent.
Now's the time to do it. If you're tuning in now, you should be doing this.
That's
what you
exactly
should
why
do.
we're having this conversation. I love this. I love this. Okay, so if we got to wrap it up, if you could give parents, I want you to answer this. If you could give parents who are struggling with this right now, if they're going through hell in their home right now, and you could give them one piece of advice that you wish someone had given you before you had to walk through hell, what would you tell the parents?
Let's just start with this because I was thinking this as we were all going around the table talking, like even taking stock of my emotions. I'm thinking about this airing and the shame and the embarrassment associated with it. And I literally sat here and had to check myself to say, no, it's okay. This is your truth, your family's truth. It's not the end of anything. You know, you don't have to be embarrassed or shameful. You know, I wish that we would talk about things like this more openly. And if I had had that, I wouldn't be sitting here, you know, even after feeling what I'm feeling now because I'm so uncomfortable with having to vocalize my experience. And I want other parents to be free of that so that we can be free to have the conversations and engage with our children and get the paperwork filled out because we're not acting like it doesn't exist, even when we have an idea that it does. So that would be my hope for parents that are similarly situated is that you would feel free to get what you need as well. Because, you know, I've had to, you know, submit to my own therapy and my, you know, because I needed to learn how to exist and to live in this new normal. And to know that that's okay. And to know that my child's path is her path. And it's you know, I can support her. And it's not the death of my hopes and my dreams, but the rebirth of a new reality for us. And it's okay if it doesn't look like other people's reality. And I want other parents to be free to live from that place as well as they may be experiencing this and trying to figure it out to not feel like you are a prisoner in your own guilt and shame.
I just want to submit to you that there is no shame in being brave.
Right.
And you're being really brave and sharing your experience because you're going to be helping a lot of moms and dads.
There are so many people who
Sorry.
feel like that.
Yeah.
There are so many parents who feel exactly like you just shared. There are so many parents, not my family, not my daughter, nothing's wrong with my daughter, nothing's wrong with my daughter. We don't need therapy. We don't need therapy. And they carry their child's pain as if it was something that they caused.
Mm-hmm.
This is so brave.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for being willing to share your story so that other people can be stronger.
I'm a firm believer that, there can be purpose in pain, as long as you don't give in to the idea that the pain is bigger than the purpose. And that means, sometimes doing the hard thing and talking about it. Because if I wish somebody had talked about it for me, because it would have helped me, then maybe I'm the person for somebody else.
You're definitely the person for someone else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to do one public
Absolutely.
service announcement.
I was hoping you would.
As I mentioned earlier when I did my introductions, I serve on the Lethal Means Committee for Broward. The most commonly used manner of death by suicide is a gun. I urge anyone and everyone, if you have a gun, lock it up, separate it out in different parts of your house or whatever.
Fingerprint access.
55 to 60% of death by suicide is with a weapon. And it's usually with a weapon that person doesn't own. To keep your home safe, to keep yourself safe, lock up your guns. If we could just eliminate that cause, it's the most lethal, it's the most accessible, and it doesn't have to be. So there are things that we can do in terms of prevention that are very mechanical and quite frankly, quite simple.
Paul, I was hoping, that wasn't what I thought you were going to say, but I was hoping that you would give us just a little bit more information on the local resources that you have available and your response team, because your response team was phenomenal for our team. When we experienced our loss earlier this year. How can people access that? Through 988?
Yes,
Okay.
we do get referrals through 988. We work very closely with all the police departments locally, so when they go to a scene, they'll call our loss team.
Okay.
It's local outreach to suicide survivors, and it's comprised of survivors.
Yes.
They're the ones who go to the scene, and what we do is we'll bring other volunteers. So if someone's husband died by suicide, we'll bring someone whose husband died with us so they can have that same conversation. To sit with a human being to say to them, I lost my son, I lost my daughter, I lost my husband. When you see the look on that other person's
Yes.
face, what starts to happen is that shame starts to melt away. Oh my God, really? You survived this? Yes, and let me show you how. So when we can do that and give people that opportunity to talk about it in a way that they don't have to hide it, that they don't have to like clean it up, if you will, be raw, be emotional, it's okay. That's what we do, is we want to work with people who have experienced this pain, a pain that no one wants to have anyone else have to go through, ever. It's an opportunity to do that. There are loss teams all over the United States.
Okay.
If you just Google loss team in your state, you may find locally one that will service your area. They're not everywhere.
But if
they
somebody
are around.
calls 988, no matter where they are listening, that 988,
They should have access to a loss team.
okay, they should know who to send
Yes.
immediately. Okay,
Yes.
excellent. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I know this is an uncomfortable conversation. It's probably a conversation you have every
Many,
day,
many
multiple
times.
times a day. But for the rest of us, not necessarily something that we talk about every day. So thank you. And thank you for tuning in today. We'll see you next time on This Is Now, Parenting Teens Today.